TomoNews presents Charities.
Daughters inherit $20 million, but dad's will includes a catch. When 77-year-old millionaire and real estate mogul Maurice Laboz passed away, he left his daughters, 21-year-old Marlena and 17-year-old Victoria, a total of $10 million each in his will. But he included a set of rules for their inheritance. They could receive the whole lump sum when they reached the age of 35, or they could play the game of life and inherit the cash earlier. For example, if Marlena gets married before turning 35, she would get $500,000, but her husband has to sign an agreement saying he won't touch any of it. And if Victoria graduates from one of the universities approved by her dad, then she'll get $750,000 for graduating and coming up with a postgraduate plan. Also, if the daughters have children in wedlock, then they're eligible for a chunk of change. Their mother, Iwa Laboz, was left out of the will, because she and Mr. Laboz were in the middle of getting a divorce when he died. But the daughters can also tap their inheritance for taking care of their mom. Iwa has filed court papers to get her hands on some of the $37 million left behind after the death of Mr. Laboz, claiming that they were technically still married when he croaked. The rest of the money from his fortune is slated to go to charities like the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's and Meals on Wheels.
China bitch slaps Philippines with paltry aid donation. After Typhoon Haiyan swept through the Philippines last week, destroying cities and killing thousands, rich countries pledged millions of dollars in aid. So China's initial donation of a mere $100,000 raised eyebrows. Now China has raised that figure to $1.64 million. But seriously, even the private sector is giving generously, with IKEA's charity arm and Samsung offering millions of dollars worth of support. Meanwhile, Taiwan's government, not over the Philippines' killing of a Taiwanese fisherman, has pledged just $200,000. And stingy Hong Kong is apparently still smarting over the deaths of 8 tourists in a bungled Manila hostage rescue in 2010. China's mean spirit clearly stems from a territorial dispute with the Philippines in the South China Sea, which the PRC outrageously claims in its entirety. Beijing is also both stoking and reacting to a hostile Chinese public. Is China's stinginess reasonable? Leave a comment.
Popsicle vendor gets over $150,000 in donations for his retirement. The internet has done some good this week for this popsicle vendor in Chicago. 89-year-old Fidencio Sanchez, pictured here with his wife, sells popsicles from a cart to make a living in the Windy City. One day, Joel Cervantes Marcias, seen here, decided to extend the old man a helping hand. Macias was visiting the little village neighborhood of Chicago where he grew up when he saw Sanchez pushing his cart. Macias snapped this image and shared it on Facebook, writing, "I respect this man to the fullest." Macias seemed moved to upload the post because that day, he learned Fidencio's only daughter died in July. His wife, who used to help with the cart, also became ill. So although Fidencio had already been retired for a few months, his circumstances forced him to return to his cart. Macias wanted to help, so he paid Fidencio $50 for 20 popsicles. But that didn't seem like enough. So Macias set up a GoFundMe page to help gather retirement money for the hardworking man. Fidencio's story went viral. Reporters showed up to film the man at work, and the crowdfunding page ended up amassing more than $150,000 in donations within 3 days. Macias plans to stream the moment he presents the Sanchez's with the money on Facebook Live. But Fidencio is already aware of all that well-wishers are doing for him, and he plans to pay the goodwill forward, saying he's going to share the money with churches in Chicago and in Mexico, as well as with his grandchildren.
Man walks 21 miles to work every day. Now he's rich. If James Robertson isn't the hardest working man in America, we'd love to hear your nomination. Not only has he not missed a day of work in 12 years, but for the past 10 years, Robertson's walked 21 miles 5 days a week on his way to and from work. Okay, once in a while he gets a ride from Blake Pollock, who shares the same route as Robertson. Otherwise, the 56-year-old man leaves his home at 8 a.m. and walks a couple miles to catch a northbound bus on Woodward Avenue to Troy's Somerset Collection, From there, he walks another 6 miles to work his 2 to 10 shift at Shane Mold and Engineering. Then after work, it's a 6-mile walk back to the collection center, where he catches the last bus of the day just before 1 a.m. He takes that as far as he can into Detroit and then walks the last 5 miles home. Whew! When Evan Leedy heard Robertson's story, he set up a GoFundMe account for the walker to raise enough money for a car. The initial goal was set at $5,000, but after just 2 days, there's more than $250,000 waiting for Robertson. And a local dealership has offered to give him a car. With that much cash on hand, Robertson could buy a new house, or 10 in Detroit. In fact, here's a sweet pad for sale right around the corner from his work. A Michigan man with a nearly 100-pound scrotum is looking to crowdsource medical costs for surgery. Let me get this out of the way. Dan Maurer has balls. He set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for his medical expenses. In an interview with WZZM CNN from his Battle Creek home, the 39-year-old said he noticed his scrotum began growing sometime in his late 20s. He went to the doctor and was told he needed to lose weight, so he hit the pool swimming 2 miles a day. He quickly shed 50 pounds from his frame, but the thing kept growing to about the size of a cantaloupe. He went back to the doctor, whose advice was the same: lose more weight. Maybe try lap band surgery. As frustration with doctors grew, so did his scrotum, and his relationship with his wife started to suffer. Maurer felt like he was all alone in his condition until he saw the story of Wesley Warren Jr. on a TLC show called The Man with a 132-Pound Scrotum. Warren suffered from scrotal lymphedema, which is a condition caused by blockages in the lymphatic vessels. Warren's story gave Maurer new hope that there might be help for him, and if not for him, he wanted to do it for his wife of 20 years, Mindy. We here at TomoNews have pledged $100 to Dan. If you'd like to show your support, click on the link to his GoFundMe page provided below.
Maximum Suffrage 2016.
Comic book fans lash out after Marvel CEO makes $1 million donation at Trump's fundraiser for veterans. Marvel Entertainment CEO and billionaire Isaac Ike Perlmutter last Thursday donated $1 million to Rhino presidential candidate Donald Trump's
middle finger to Fox News and Megyn Kelly
veterans fundraiser event. And some on the American left took this as a signal that Marvel had gone all Hydra and decided to ditch their famous approach to diversity and, quote, make America great again, unquote. Trump style, of course. We do wonder what they'll do about that Mexican Spider-Man, though. But who is Ike? Well, to the fanboys of the Disney-owned Marvel, he's somewhat of a reclusive comic book supervillain, akin to Thanos. The billionaire businessman saved the company from going bankrupt in the 1990s, but then allegedly became ever so stingy when it came to making movies, to the point where the mouse cut him out of the creative process. Sites such as Salon stupidly called for a boycott of all things Marvel because of Ike's donation to Trump's fundraiser. But it's not like that Donald is calling the shots on the next Avengers movie, right?
Random acts of pasta bring free carbs to the homeless. Hey, remember Olive Garden? You know, that Italian chain restaurant where you can replace the lonely void in your heart with fettuccine. Well, one local hero in Utah discovered a way to bring Olive Garden's void-filling goodness to the people who really need it. Matt Tribe of Ogden, Utah was one of only 1,000 people bestowed with a never-ending pasta pass. It's a card which gives the bearer the power to call forth unlimited pasta for 7 weeks. But instead of giving himself diabetes, Tribe decided to go about dispensing pasta to the hungry masses. He gave pasta to the mailman. He gave pasta to his sister's baby. But most of all, he gave fettuccine Alfredo to the homeless on 10 occasions. And at 1,200 calories a plate, that's enough carbo fuel to run a half marathon. Thank you, Pasta Man.
Transgender Girl Scout stands up to bully with cookies. Last year, Girl Scouts in Washington refused an $100,000 donation that came with a no transgender support caveat. Now one little trooper has again championed the cause by fighting back the Girl Scout way, with cookies. Meet Stormy, a transgender Girl Scout from Heron, Illinois. She set out to sell cookies last month because, well, cookies make people smile. After selling over 60 boxes door to door, she was turned away by one man who told her, "Nobody wants to buy cookies from a boy in a dress." The 9-year-old was understandably sad, but she wasn't going to let her bully win, and so she moved her cookie enterprise online. Supporters rallied around the little girl's cause with orders pouring in from as far away as Australia. One New York improv duo even offered fans free admission to a show if attendees presented a proof of purchase for Stormy's cookies. By Thursday, Stormy's Cookie World had sold more than 3,000 boxes of Girl Scout treats. But more than that, the outpouring of support has motivated the little girl to fight against discrimination, now that she knows she's fine the way she is.
Homeless family could be stripped of government assistance because of GoFundMe campaign. Washington resident Demika Gilmore, her 15-year-old daughter who has bone cancer, and her 21-year-old disabled son had been homeless for the past few months until she started a GoFundMe page that momentarily gave them promise of a better future, until the government gave her a choice. She can either keep the donations or the government assistance. Gilmore was at one point living in the basement of a church in Tukwila, Washington, along with her 2 children, until some 300 strangers responded to her GoFundMe page and donated a whopping $15,000. The family's excitement about their newly acquired good fortune was short-lived, as government officials from the Social Security Administration and the state's Department of Social and Health Services were quick to pounce on the cash. If Gilmore keeps the money counts as income, and her family will lose their food benefits from the state, as well as their federal medical assistance, which is what's funding her daughter's chemotherapy. It seems like the government is asking Gilmore to choose between 2 situations in which her family loses out. Either way, neither the donations nor the government benefits by themselves will be enough to cover her family's needs.
Girl sets up lemonade stand to help rebuild her family's home. A Lutz, Florida 10-year-old has raised thousands to help rebuild her family's burned-down home by literally turning lemons into lemonade. In March of 2013, the De La Salles family home caught fire. The blaze began in their garage and quickly swept through the rest of their house. The family was left devastated and forced to rebuild their home from scratch, but the insurance money didn't quite cover the necessary costs. The family was told it would only take a few short months to fix their home, but 2 years on, their contractors along with the remaining insurance money were nowhere to be found. Still paying down the mortgage on their home as well as paying rent on a temporary apartment, the De La Salles desperately needed help, so their daughter, 4th grader Alyssa, took things into her own hands. With her father's approval, Alyssa set up a lemonade stand and called a national radio station to read a letter promoting the charitable venture. With the help of her 13-year-old brother Damien, Alyssa served baked goods alongside ice-cold lemonade. Supportive Tampa residents showed up in droves, raising $15,000 in a single day. One mystery donor even plopped down $1,000 just for 1 cup of lemonade. The De La Salles still need about $70,000 more to finish up work on their home. If you'd like to contribute, hit the link in Alyssa's GoFundMe campaign in the description below.
Chinese billionaire invites poor and destitute Americans to lunch. You may know Chen Guanbao as the Chinese businessman who unsuccessfully tried to buy the New York Times. He gained internet fame for his outlandish business card titles such as China's moral leader and most charismatic philanthropist. The renewable energy billionaire is now making a bid to become America's most charismatic philanthropist, a position currently held by Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. Last week, Tycoon Chen took out a full-page ad in the New York Times inviting 1,000 poor and destitute Americans to lunch. He said he's teaming up with famous American charities to host the June 25th luncheon at the Central Park Boathouse restaurant in New York, where fish and chips go for about $24. In addition to a free lunch, Chen also promised to give each attendee $300 in cash for occupational training. The $1 million event is aimed at changing America's perception of filthy rich Chinese businessmen. The event will come at a cost to attendees, though, as they will be forced to listen to Chen's rendition of We Are the World. Poor and destitute Americans looking to attend are encouraged to reply to the Hotmail address listed in the ad. See you there.